GRE and TOEFL. So are they still a thing? I remember during my time when I was applying for a PhD in the US, it was a big thing, but I see that recently there is a shift away from assessing students based on GRE and TOEFL. So what's your experience?
Yeah, so TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language, is still used for pretty much every non-English, official English-speaking country. Usually those elements are, there's usually a threshold, there's often a threshold that a particular department or program uses, where if the number is below a certain score, then that person may not even make it in front of the faculty search committee. It depends on the school. I think for many people, for many PIs who are interested in taking a student who speaks English as a second language, may also want to talk to the applicant on Zoom, just to make sure that the TOEFL is an accurate representation of that person's communication skills in English. I have never taken a student without having spoken to them. Never. GRE is an interesting issue. There was a time when, for let's say political reasons, departments began eliminating the GRE as a required part of the application. The reason being that low socioeconomic status students from lowest quintile high schools in terms of median household income, students of minority backgrounds, Black and Hispanic students, Southeast Asian American students, tended not to do as well on the GRE. And so they said, well, because these, there's going to be a detrimental effect on the application, so we can't use the GRE anymore. I think pretty soon after that started, and some of the other arguments were the GRE score doesn't predict the ability of a student to complete a PhD, and that may be entirely true. It probably is. I think that there have been credible studies on that. However, once you eliminate the GRE, especially for international students, or especially students from rural America who went to schools, there are thousands of four-year colleges and universities in America. And if a faculty search committee has not heard of a school, and they don't know the great inflation culture there, they don't know anything about the rigor of the school, if you don't have that extra data point, it makes it very difficult to standardize, to normalize your interpretation of the quality of an application. And is it true that students from low socioeconomic backgrounds don't do as well in the GRE? Yeah, that's absolutely true. But what you have to do is compare those scores to other scores within the same school. Now, suppose someone gets suppose someone gets an 80th percentile on the math, or a 60th percentile on the math, and they went to a school on the border of Kansas and Colorado, in the middle of nowhere, exact center of the country, right? Not to cast aspersion at all on different regions of the country, but I'm just saying that, okay, the median income maybe is not going to be as high. They got a 60th percentile on the math section of the GRE, but in their school, that's the 99th percentile. That looks pretty good. That looks like a pretty good utilization of the resources that person had. And yeah, that's a really good GRE score, given the given the preparation that student had. Now, yeah, it's an absolute. There may be some sense that a 60th percentile is not as good as a 90th percentile if you went to Harvard or MIT. But there's an extra kind of bit of care, or there's an extra bit of character to which being the 99th percentile at the place that you went into acquiring the resources in order to do well on this standardized test by the standards of the people around you. I also feel like, we started this conversation talking about the different aspects, the half dozen or so documents that need to go into a grad school application, and the GRE score is only one. So by saying that, someone doesn't do as well in the GRE, then that one piece of data is basically going to turn the admissions committee members, who can see all of the other aspects of the application, that's going to turn them into one issue deciders, right? The GRE is not so good. That person's out. I did really poorly on the math section of my GRE. Like, we're talking 50th percentile. I don't do well on standardized tests. I don't, whatever. But I'm a white guy. I went to a private university. I happen to be from a low-income background, but I had a lot of financial aid and a really generous scholarship from Boston University. And I got the 50th percentile on the math section of the GRE. And I got into Caltech, Stanford, Harvard, Columbia, Berkeley. And so clearly they were looking at other aspects of my application. I did well on the chemistry and the verbal and the analytical sections of the GRE. So, it's a diversification, strategy. So I don't know. I think the GRE probably does more good than harm overall, and I'm glad that it's coming back.
So if you have a relatively low GRE, you can still apply. There's no harm.
Yes.
Going to the top schools. Yeah.